Hello bookworms! Today we're going to be doing my February wrap up. I feel like February was not as good of a reading month for me as January. I did read some really good books, but I didn't read as much off of my 2025 TBR as I wanted to. And I felt like we were just overloaded with bad news in February, and there were a couple of things that came up that I felt like were just kind of hitting me hard, so I wanted to pivot and read some lighter things. So I did still read some of the books off of my TBR, and I do feel like I am back on track now. But yeah, it wasn't a bad month. I just didn't read as much off of my TBR as I wanted to. So kicking things off with fantasy, I did read The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and I really loved this book. I am shocked that I ended up DNFing it the first time that I tried to read it, but I think it was a timing thing. This second time around, I really loved it, and I found myself highlighting so much of the prose because it was just so beautiful. Specifically, one of the things that I enjoyed most was the description of a sword and what a sword means and how it's such an elegant weapon. And that whole passage I just really enjoyed. And then I even just enjoy where the title of the book comes from. I believe it's right in the beginning they have Joe Abercrombie put the full quote, but it's from Homer, and it's "The blade itself incites violence," which is pretty apt for this grimdark fantasy series. But we're following 3 different perspectives, so my absolute favorite is definitely Glokta, who is a torturer. He's just so fascinating. He's so apathetic. The things that he does are really unsettling, but I could not get enough of his perspective. It was just so good. And then I also really enjoyed the perspective of Logan Ninefingers, and most especially when the wizard character showed up. And I really liked that he was not a conventional wizard. They kept describing him as looking like a butcher. So he was a really good, really fascinating character to me too. And I really enjoyed their storyline. And then the one that I liked the least, which is the reason that I DNF'd it the first time around, was Jezal, who was the knight. He just drove me crazy because he's just so terrible. Everyone told me to take his perspective as more of a joke and not a serious perspective. And I think going into it with that mindset really helped me. So I even found myself enjoying his sections more than I did the first time around. And I really liked how everything came together at the end. And I feel with where it left off, it really, the plot is starting to accelerate, because pretty much the entire book is getting to know the characters. There's really not too much happening in the way of plot. And now I understand why people struggle to summarize this book. But there is a big opportunity for the story to move forward now. And I'm really looking forward to reading the second book in the series. I'm definitely hoping that I'll be able to do so in March. And I'm so glad that I gave this one another shot and that I ended up loving it so much. This was definitely a new favorite for me, which is so unexpected. But Joe Abercrombie's prose is just beautiful. Then I read The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon, which is book 3 in the Bone Season series. And this one I really enjoyed as well. Book 2 left off on such a huge cliffhanger, so I was pretty much dying to get back into this story. And this was actually a rather short installment. The other books I feel were longer, and I do believe book 4, The Mask Falling, is significantly longer than this one, which I'm kind of glad about, because I feel I can never get enough of these characters. I love Paige, love the Warden. I love how the world keeps expanding with each book. And my friend Alexa told me that I absolutely have to read the Dawn Chorus before I pick up book 4, The Mask Falling. So I currently have that on hold at the library. I'm really looking forward to that one coming off of hold so that I can then continue with the series. I'm really enjoying it. The 5th book just came out, so I'm gonna read that one really soon too and be current. And that's one of my goals, is to finish series and be current with series. So I feel good about that choice, even though the way that these end, they always leave me wanting so much more. So I am worried about the wait between books, but it's totally worth it because it's such a fun and unique fantasy world. We're following Paige Mahoney, who is a dreamwalker. It's unlike any other fantasy that I've ever read, so I've really appreciated it, and I really like how things have progressed. I never read the original first book when it came out. I've only read the revised 10th anniversary edition. So I don't know if I would have loved it as much if I had read that first one initially. So far, I'm really addicted to this series, and I'm really, really glad that I finally picked this one up after so many years. Then I read What the River Knows by Isabella Banez. I loved this book so much. This one is deeply rooted in Egyptian mythology. We're following a character who is living with her aunt, and she gets a letter that her parents have died, and her parents were archaeologists that would go and explore different tombs and search for tombs of the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. And it was so cool. So she wanted to find out what exactly happened because she didn't have any answers. So she kind of sneaks on this boat to go to Egypt and find out from her uncle what exactly is going on. But she ends up uncovering some more sinister things that might have happened surrounding her parents' disappearance. She does have an enemies to lovers type situation with Whit, who is her uncle's, I want to say he's kind of an assistant or something. And I just really enjoyed Inez as a character and her dynamic with Whit. And I liked what a go-getter she was. And also fun in this book, she is an artist. So she was drawing a lot throughout it, and there are a lot of illustrations in here, which I really wasn't expecting, but I thought it was a fun addition. I'm really looking forward to reading the second book. This is a duology, so it's nice that it's completed and I'll have an ending very soon. This is one that I am hoping to finish up in March, but I truly enjoyed my time reading this one. And then lastly, in my fantasy category, I did read 50% of The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, so I'm glad that I did that because I know I've been talking about how I'm going to read this one for a little bit in my videos since January, so now I can finally say that I have started it. I know I said in my State of the Series video that I was hoping I would have started it by the time that video went live, and I actually started it the day that video went live, and I've been enjoying it so much that I am already halfway through it. It is a pretty big book. It's classic fantasy, but I'm going to talk about this one in my March wrap up because obviously I haven't finished it yet, but I thought it was worth mentioning since I did read 50%. Actually, same goes for the Dungeon Anarchists cookbook. I think Andrew and I only have an hour and a half of that audiobook left, so we're super close to finishing that, so I'll talk about that in March. And then I'm also really close to finishing the Ashes on the Star-Cursed King audiobook by Carissa Broadbent, which is the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia duology. So those are coming. I really wanted to finish them before I filmed my February wrap up because I was I'm so close to the end on these, but I just didn't have the time, so they'll be in next month. Then moving on to science fiction. So I read Artemis by Andy Weir. This is definitely my least favorite Andy Weir book that I've read. I was kind of surprised at how much I did not enjoy this one because Project Hail Mary is one of my favorite science fiction books, and I also loved The Martian so much. This one just didn't hit for me. I don't know, if it was just that he is not good at writing a female protagonist. I think it was a combination of that and the story just wasn't as engaging for me. This one had a little bit of a heist going on, but I just never really got into it, never really connected with the characters. And there was also one thing in it that really grossed me out. There was supposed to be humor, and I felt a lot of the humor didn't land either. So that was really unfortunate because I was expecting to really enjoy this and I really didn't. I think I actually gave this one 2 stars. And then I read Queen Amid Ashes by Christopher Rocchio. So that is book 2.6 in the Sun Eater series. And this one I actually did really enjoy. I enjoyed it more so than book 2. This was a short story. I felt there was a lot of really interesting philosophy in this one around times of peace versus times of war, and then concept of justice. So this was a really enjoyable read, and it actually got me really excited to pick up book 3 in the series. Definitely recommend reading this short story if you are reading Sun Eater but haven't read any of them yet. I did read The Lesser Devil too, which was the short story between books 1 and 2. I read that last year, and I thought that one was fine, but I actually thought that this one was really good. Then I read one thriller, so I read One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This is my second Ruth Ware book, and I honestly thought this one was like fine, but I didn't think that it was great. So it's kind of unfortunate because Ruth Ware is like such a popular thriller author. I thought she was going to be someone that I would read one book from, love it, and then want to just like catch up on her backlist. But now I've read two of them and neither of them were hits for me. The other one that I read was, oh gosh, what was it called? It was like people on a work retreat at a mountain and they like got stuck there. I can't remember what it was called, but I do think I'm going to give her one final chance. I do really want to read her book, The It Girl, because that one is like a dark academia kind of thriller. So I'm hopeful that that could be the one that I love. I guess I should talk about what this one's actually about. So in this one, we are following a group of contestants who are on a reality show, and they're on this island, and there's like this big storm that happens and they get stuck there. There's like no sign of help. So it's kind of like Lord of the Flies-esque, like it's them trying to survive on this island. Usually like a thriller is like such a page turner and like I have to keep going, and I just like never felt that way. I was just like, all right, I'm gonna keep reading it because I'll find out what happened. But yeah, I didn't really care for this. Moving on to romance, I read First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I buddy read this with two of my friends, Kim and Kelly, and all three of us really loved it. We love B.K. Borison. Her romances have been so good, and I feel like she did such a great job of developing a really engaging like community and side characters just within the first book. Like her worlds are just so real, and that's like what I loved about Love Light Farms too. So I'm really looking forward to book 2 in here, but this one is based on Sleepless in Seattle, and we're following a single mom whose daughter calls into this radio station Heartstrings, and she's basically like looking for love advice because she thinks that her mom is lonely and she wants her to be happy. And then Lucy and the host Aiden end up falling in love with each other, but it's a whole road getting to that point. And it's just so cute and really, really just like a really nice, fluffy, fun romance read, and very like feel good. And I liked it a lot more than Sleepless in Seattle also. And we're already like predicting who the next books are going to be about. So if you're in the market for romance, this is definitely a really good one to check out. I also read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali's newest release. This one is a college romance about a competitive swimmer and a diver. Was not my favorite of her books so far. It was definitely very different than anything she's ever written. I do like that she's branching out, but her scientist, like her STEMinist romances are definitely my favorites that she's written. I still haven't read Bride or Check and Mate, so I do have to do that. But this one and Not in Love were my two least favorite that I've read so far. I liked it. I felt like the relationship, like the characters were kind of like disconnected from each other. Initially like bonded over mutual like sexual preferences, but I just never felt like the strong love connection, even though like that's where they were by the end of the book. I didn't feel it. I enjoyed it. I never even Ali Hazelwood's books that I don't love, I still enjoy reading them because I think that she writes really well. It's not one that I would reread. It's not one that I would recommend if you haven't read any of her other books, but it's, I would say, comparatively better than a lot of other romances that I have read. Then I read A False Start by Elsie Silver. This is the final book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, and this one I really loved. I was not ready for this. Like, I didn't realize that the romance was going to be such a huge age gap, but I am glad that I like knew that going into it. I really like both of the characters in here, and I really loved the way that their romance went. I thought it was really cute, and one thing that I like loved especially is that the male main character, he would call her Wildflower, and just like the romantic grand gesture essentially that he did for her at the ending, that like I just thought was the sweetest thing, and I really, really enjoyed that, and this was just really fun. And I'm so glad that I finished this series. I really love Elsie Silver's books, and I'm really looking forward to diving into Chestnut Springs now, so this was delightful. Then I read volumes 7 through 10 of Yona of the Dawn, and I'm just continuing to enjoy this series so much. They are so fun to pick up between some of like the big fantasy books that I've been reading. So I do feel like I kind of slowed down on reading some of it toward the end of the month because I was reading like those romances and thrillers. So I wasn't really craving like something short like this. I am looking forward to diving into more of these in March, and I am really hopeful that I will get caught up by the end of the year. There are like 43 volumes, I think, or 40 and 44, I think 44 and 45 are coming out this year. I definitely have a ways to go, but I just like inhale these when I'm in the mood for them. I can read so many of them. They're so good. The characters in here are so good. We're following Yona, who has had to essentially like flee the palace because her father was murdered, and now she's like on the run, but she's seeing like what's actually going on within her kingdom. And I'm so excited. Like I really want her to be able to go and reclaim her throne, and I think she'll just have such a positive impact on everybody because she has actually been like out there seeing what's going on versus like being sheltered within the palace. And she's traveling with companions that are dragons, and oh, it's just so good. Like if you haven't read the series, you absolutely have to. It's so good. Okay, then moving on to TV shows. So this month we watched the first season of One Piece, which I was really excited about. I read all of the volumes in East Blue so that I would be able to watch that first season. And I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it because I was like unsure how they were going to make such a silly manga into a live action show, but it worked so well. It was cast perfectly. I thought the story was adapted really well. I actually, like, as I had been reading the manga, I didn't love Sanji, the cook, but I did really love him in the show. So even like elements of the manga that weren't my favorite, I felt like they made them more exciting for me in the show. And I'm really excited that we're getting another season of it, and I need to read more volumes before that, so I'm caught up. But yeah, this was really enjoyable, like really so much better than I ever thought that it could be. Then we watched the first season of Dark Matter on Apple TV Plus, and this one I didn't really care for. Like, it's not bad, but having read the book, Andrew and I both read the book and agree that like we feel like the show hasn't really added anything to it. Like the adaptation is fine, but so it's hard to explain one of the reasons why I don't think the show is as effective as the book without giving away spoilers, so I don't want to say it, but I do think that there's an element to the book that makes you feel more connected and makes the story more engaging. So I'm glad that we watched it. I'm not like dying to watch season 2 when it comes out. We probably will. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then we also watched season 1 of Wednesday. And I don't know how I like haven't gotten around to watching this yet, but this I really loved. I just thought it was so much fun. I love that Christina Ricci was in it since she played Wednesday in The Addams Family. I thought Jenna Ortega did such an amazing job bringing Wednesday to life. I loved Fred Armisen as Uncle Fester. I loved the whole setting of being at Nevermore Academy. I loved that there was like a murder mystery that was going on. Andrew called it in the second episode, like what was going on. He was correct, but it was still just like fun. Like it just, and I love the aesthetic of it. It was just enjoyable. It wasn't like, it's not very serious, but it was just a really fun time. And this is getting a second season. So this one I am looking forward to the second season of. Then for movies, we watched Sleepless in Seattle. And the reason that we watched that is because I wanted to watch it before reading First Time Caller, since I knew that First Time Caller was loosely inspired by it. And it was my first time ever seeing it. And I have to say, I didn't really love it. Andrew and I both agreed that Meg Ryan came off as like a crazy stalker, like traveling across the country to like see this guy that she had never met before, like talked to before. And then like the kid like traveling on his own was pretty like outlandish. So there was like a lot of it that was just like crazy. I did think that her apartment was super cute and very cottagecore, so I liked that element of it, and I'm glad that I can now say that I have seen it, and it's one that I can knock off of my list because I've been trying to watch like classic rom-coms and catch up on things that I haven't seen this year. Glad that I watched it, but definitely not a favorite. And I also watched Bridget Jones's Diary for the first time, so now my friends can stop telling me that I need to see it because I have seen it. And this one I really did enjoy. This I thought was a lot better than Sleepless in Seattle. Again, Bridget Jones is like a bit nuts, but It was a really fun story. Hugh Grant is always like a great time to watch. I didn't realize how many more movies there are. I thought it was just like the one, but there's like a lot more. So I have to see if I'm going to watch those. But I do think that this one was a fun time, and I am really glad that I can say that I've seen this one now as well. And then lastly, as far as games go, I did not play any new video games, although I'm gonna start one as soon as I finish filming this video. But Andrew and I are trying to play one new board game per month. So in January, I didn't talk about it. We actually played like one of the last weekends. We played the board game Root, and I really enjoyed it. It's like very frustrating and it's so much to learn. Like there's so many rules involved, but it's really cute. I really like the look of like the board and the pieces and everything, and I really like the concept of it. So there are like 4 different kinds of factions that you could be when you're playing, but they recommend starting by playing, like if you're 2-player, with playing like as the cat people or the bird people. So we did that. Like we each I played as the cat people first and Andrew was the birds, and then we like switched. And then we played a second game because Andrew kept winning and I was like, I need to win. I don't think I don't know. I can't remember if I ended up ever making a comeback, but it was really interesting and I feel like there's so much strategy that goes into it. So it was just like a really good time. I'm really looking forward to playing it again, especially now that I understand how it goes more. I think I did a better job of learning the rules once we were like immersed in the game than I did just hearing them read out, because you can see like how pieces are moving and how people are going, and that definitely affects like decision making. Andrew and I both tend to not be like super aggressive when we're playing games against each other, and in this game like you kind of have to be. So it was a total like departure from what we usually do, but I really liked it, and I'm looking forward to playing when we have more people too, because I want to see how it would go with 4 different factions on the board versus just 2. There's one faction that you actually like can't play with unless you have 4 players, I think. Yeah, so just like curious to see how that will go, but really excited that we actually got to play this one. We have like a big stock of board games at home that are new games that we haven't delved into, so that's why we're trying to make an effort to play like one new one per month. Let me know if you have any favorite board games. We really are like board game people and really enjoy playing them, and I'm always open to new games. So that is everything that I read and watched and played in February, and that's all that I have for this video, so I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!